Within just a few nights, wild boars had started showing up right along the edges of the fields. They rooted up the soil, damaged crops, and moved closer and closer to livestock areas. The signs they left behind made it clear that this was no longer a minor problem. If action wasn't taken quickly, the damage would only become more severe. We couldn't afford to keep waiting, and we certainly couldn't allow them to return night after night. That left us with only one option: begin setting traps, not just to stop individual animals, but to control the entire sounder before the situation spiraled out of control. The first trap was set under the cover of darkness deep inside a wooded area along the edge of a Texas farm, where wild boars have been showing up consistently for several days. Our lights were used only when absolutely necessary. Every step was completed quickly but carefully before we left, leaving the trap hidden in the dense darkness of the forest. That very night, the trap was triggered. When we returned the following morning, we could immediately tell something was different. Even from a distance, the sounds coming from inside suggested that something had been caught. As we moved closer, I saw several wild boars trapped after a long night inside the enclosure. They were constantly moving and bumping into one another in the confined space. There was no time to hesitate. I began handling the situation in a controlled and deliberate manner, keeping a steady pace to prevent complications. The work continued as each animal was secured and removed from the trap. As planned. The second trap was deployed along the eastern edge of the forest in an area of tall grass that showed heavy signs of wild boar activity. At first, the location seemed promising. We completed the setup that night and left as scheduled. However, the results the next morning were far from what we expected. The trap had been triggered, but only a few animals remained inside. Tracks around the area revealed that most of the sounder had managed to escape. It was clear that the location wasn't concealed well enough, making the boars more cautious and forcing us to rethink our trapping strategy for future attempts. The third trap was checked at first light along the southern edge of a pine forest while a thin layer of fog still covered the ground. Even from a distance, the sounds coming from inside suggested much better results than we had hoped for. As we approached, the scene was truly impressive. Dozens of wild boars were packed inside the trap, creating a tense and chaotic mass of movement. Rather than rushing in, we kept a safe distance and carefully assessed the situation before beginning the collection process. Every step was carried out according to plan to ensure the safety of the team and maintain full control throughout the operation. final trap was placed deep within the pine forest beside a reservoir that the boars visited regularly. It was a location I was confident they wouldn't ignore, especially since the water source had become a consistent gathering point for the entire sounder. Everything was carefully prepared before we left. Even so, what happened next exceeded all expectations. Later that evening, an alert suddenly appeared on the mobile app connected to our camera system. The moment I opened the live feed, I knew something unusual was happening. There were so many wild boars inside that they nearly filled the entire trap. They continuously shoved against the panels, while several large animals slammed into the steel framework, creating a relentless barrage of heavy impacts that echoed through the night. This operation may have come to an end, but the battle against invasive wild boars is far from over. As pressure on crops and livestock continues to grow, the effort to protect farms will remain an ongoing challenge for years to come. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to join us on future adventures.
Look at that.
Not every battle in agriculture is fought between humans and the weather. Sometimes, the enemy emerges from the darkness, moving without a sound and leaving behind fields torn apart overnight. That enemy is the feral hog. Every year, feral hogs cause an estimated $2.5 billion in economic damage across the United States, particularly in Texas. Their destruction is considered a major ecological and agricultural disaster throughout the country. So I began by surveying the trails most frequently used by the hogs. Deep among the dense brush, a steel corral trap was set directly along one of their regular travel corridors. Bait was scattered gradually, leading farther inside to make everything appear completely natural. With feral hogs, even the slightest unusual detail can be enough to make the entire group turn away. Every aspect had to be carefully planned before nightfall arrived. As darkness settled over the forest, the unwanted visitors finally appeared. They approached slowly, constantly sniffing the air and scanning their surroundings. One by one, they stepped into the trap. Then, without warning, the steel gate slammed shut. The loud crash shattered the silence of the night. In an instant, the entire group erupted into chaos. Powerful bodies pushed and collided against the steel framework in a desperate attempt to escape. The following morning, the team returned to the site immediately. Even from a considerable distance, the intense noise coming from inside the trap could be heard clearly. The feral hogs were still charging into the steel bars, displaying remarkable strength. We quickly began the containment procedure, carefully working through each step to ensure the entire group could be secured safely and efficiently. However, that was only the beginning. The next trap was placed along the edge of the forest, where the hogs regularly emerged to feed each night. When we returned the following morning, the sight before us surprised everyone. Inside the trap was a larger number of feral hogs than we had ever captured before. They packed the enclosure tightly, constantly shoving against one another and creating an atmosphere so tense it was almost suffocating. Every impact against the steel frame echoed through the area.
Stir it up now. Stir it up now. Yeah. There you go. See, I just want to make sure there's no gaps under the right there. Guys, how close we are to the back of the house. Somehow they do that.
A few days later, another trap was deployed on the western side of the forest. This area frequently showed fresh rooting activity and a network of heavily used trails. That night, the trap performed exactly as planned. This time, however, the work was far more difficult. There was no machinery available to assist us. Every task had to be carried out by hand. Each animal was managed through experience, patience, and absolute concentration. Even a minor mistake could quickly turn the situation dangerous.
Each family's done made a call, so and see that step. You'll hear me that strap. I told y'all there's no wind. What is that? Ain't no wind. Bushy fine. Oh yeah, baby. Gone.
The final location lay deep within a dense pine forest, almost completely isolated from the surrounding areas. Everything was carefully prepared before we left. Yet the next morning, when we returned, my first impression was that something felt different. Then, as soon as I saw what was inside the trap, I understood why. These were not ordinary feral hogs. Massive animals with enormous bodies nearly filled the entire enclosure. Every movement they made produced heavy sounds that echoed throughout the forest. The trap, which had seemed enormous before, now appeared strangely small. Their power was obvious in every strike against the steel frame, causing the entire structure to shake violently. When the final operation came to an end, the forest gradually returned to its familiar silence. Looking back on the entire journey, I realized this had been far more than a routine control effort. We had temporarily regained control, but everyone understood that this confrontation was far from over. Somewhere within the dark forests beyond, other groups of hogs were still moving through the shadows, waiting for another opportunity to emerge once again.
In southern and southeastern Brazil, the damage caused by wild boars has become a serious burden on agriculture. A single herd may contain only a few dozen animals, but in heavily infested areas, farmers have reported seeing hundreds move through cropland in a single night. When they enter the fields at 2 in the morning, they don't destroy things randomly. They follow familiar paths, head straight for food sources, and tear through the soil with incredible force. What frustrates farmers the most is how well these animals remember. Wild boars are not easily fooled twice. If a trap is placed in the wrong spot, the entire herd may avoid that area for a long time. If a fence has a weak point, one large boar will test it, break through, and the rest will follow. The younger ones learn from the older animals, meaning every failed attempt by humans only makes the herd more cautious. Conventional methods have been tried almost everywhere. Electric fences can work for a while, but they are expensive to maintain and require a stable power supply. Cage traps only catch a few animals at a time, while large corral traps often need weeks of baiting, cameras, and remote trigger systems. Hunting has worked in some regions, and in certain places helicopters have even been used, but the costs are extremely high and usually reduce only a small portion of the population. Using chemicals or poison creates even greater risks. In an open ecosystem, it is difficult to target only the species being controlled. Birds, native wildlife, farm dogs, and even water sources can all be affected. Many farmers wanted a solution that was more sustainable, less dependent on technology, and didn't turn their land into a toxic battlefield. That is when an idea that seemed almost ancient began attracting attention again: digging defensive trenches around farmland. At first, the method sounds almost too simple to believe. No electricity, no bait, no remote-controlled equipment. Just a trench deep and wide enough that wild boars cannot cross it safely. Their bodies are front-heavy, with short legs that are poorly suited for jumping across wide gaps. A ditch roughly 1 to 1.5 meters deep, and at least a meter wide, can become an invisible wall along the edge of a field. The first farmers who tried this approach were often seen as strange, almost as if they were bringing medieval tactics into modern agriculture. But when wild boars reached their usual routes, the results surprised many people. The animals would stop at the edge of the trench, probe the soil with their snouts, test the slope, and then most of them would turn back. Some of the more reckless ones fell in, only to struggle climbing out because the steep walls offered little grip. However, digging trenches is not as simple as bringing in an excavator and cutting a line around a field. For the system to work long-term, the trench walls must be steep enough to stop the animals while remaining stable, especially during heavy rains. If water collects at the bottom, the trench can turn into stagnant pools that attract mosquitoes, cause erosion, and create contamination problems if trapped animals are not removed quickly. That is why the farms that use this method successfully usually include drainage systems, crossing points, warning signs, and reflective markers as part of the design. The upfront cost is certainly not small, especially for farms that stretch across several kilometers. But compared to multiple seasons of destroyed crops, the cost of seeds, fertilizer, fuel, labor, and debt carried into the next harvest, a long-term protective structure starts to make more sense. In some areas, farming cooperatives have even pooled resources together to dig trenches around neighboring properties, helping entire communities create larger defensive zones. Even so, defensive trenches are not a perfect solution for every landscape. On flat terrain, the method works extremely well. But in steep, rocky areas or regions bordering dense forests, the cost and difficulty rise quickly. The biggest lesson from the trenches in Brazil is that farmers are no longer just chasing wild boars through the night. They are redefining the boundary between their crops and the threat itself. If you found this story interesting, leave a comment and follow the channel to discover more ways farmers around the world protect their harvests.
State wildlife officials say they are more destructive and feral hogs in Texas than any other state right now.
Every year, millions of acres of farmland across Texas face a destructive invader that emerges after dark. It is not drought, crop pests, or powerful storms, but invasive feral hogs. They tear up fields, destroy crops, damage irrigation systems, and carry the risk of spreading disease. The damage they cause in Texas has reached billions of dollars annually, contributing significantly to the estimated $2.5 billion in losses across the United States each year. In many areas, residents no longer view this as a typical wildlife issue. It has become a crisis that has persisted for years. That is also why I am here. A week ago, a large-scale feral hog control operation was officially launched across multiple agricultural regions. Since then, every day has begun long before sunrise. The pickup truck rolls down rough dirt roads toward the fields suffering the worst damage. And almost every morning, the scene waiting at the end of the journey is the same. Massive steel traps shake under the weight of dozens of struggling animals inside. The ground around them is torn apart in large patches, as if a violent storm had just passed through. The sound of grunts echoing through the stillness of the early morning is enough to reveal the severity of the problem. Yet what concerns us most is not the number of hogs being captured. It is the fact that they never seem to run out. After every removal, fresh tracks appear again. Cornfields continue to be dug up. New trails emerge across the farmland. It feels as though behind every group that is eliminated, another is already moving in to take its place. That is why the most important part of the job begins immediately after a trap has been cleared. We follow every fresh sign left in the soft soil, analyzing movement patterns and identifying the travel corridors the hogs are using. This is an opponent that is far from predictable. They constantly change feeding areas, alter their routes, and adapt quickly to their surroundings. As a result, we are forced to keep relocating our trapping systems, dismantling them in one location and rebuilding them in another. Corn continues to be spread across the ground, not only to attract the animals, but also to create a sense of safety within the herd. As their confidence grows, the entire sounder begins gathering around the food source. At first, only a few cautious steps are taken near the trap entrance. Then come the bolder individuals willing to move farther inside. Eventually, nearly the entire group gathers in the center of the enclosure. While they are busy competing for the last kernels of corn, the signal is sent. The heavy steel gate drops instantly. The silence of the night is shattered by violent impacts, flying dirt, and desperate attempts to escape. This time, there is no way out. The entire group is now contained within the control system. As the sun begins to rise above the horizon, a new workday gets underway. Despite spending hours inside the trap, the feral hogs retain all of their aggression and remarkable strength. Every step must be carried out carefully to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Yet even after successful captures, new signs continue to appear out in the fields. It is a constant reminder that this is a long-term battle. If left unchecked, a single group of feral hogs can destroy the results of months of hard work in just a few nights. They tear up the soil, devastate crops, damage infrastructure, and continuously expand their range. That is why these traps do not exist to create drama. They serve as the last line of defense, protecting harvests, safeguarding the livelihoods of farming families, and preserving everything they have spent an entire year working tirelessly to build.
For years, wild boars have been one of the most concerning invasive species in North America. But in the Canadian province of Alberta, the situation is unfolding in a way few people expected. Herds of wild boars numbering anywhere from 20 to 50 animals have been appearing in broad daylight, crossing farmland, moving into small towns, and leaving chaos behind. In some areas, the damage has exceeded $800,000 per year. Even more concerning is that most traditional control methods have failed to provide long-term results. Farmers have installed fences, wildlife management teams have organized control hunts, and even metal traps have been deployed across multiple locations. Yet the wild boars keep coming back. Surveillance cameras installed near farms and industrial areas across Alberta have captured remarkable footage. Wild boars frequently travel along drainage corridors bordering forested areas and appear in residential neighborhoods shortly after dark. In many locations, the ground has been torn up so severely that even the frozen soil beneath has been overturned, leaving long trenches across fields. Even more troubling, their presence has contributed to an increase in traffic collisions on rural roads. After analyzing large amount of camera data, biologists realized something important. Wild boars are not simply entering human environments. They are actively incorporating human-developed areas into their movement networks. But what caused this shift in behavior? For an omnivorous animal like the wild boar, human-managed areas represent an enormous food source.
This becomes especially evident during winter, when temperatures plunge and natural conditions become harsh. As food sources become buried beneath thick layers of ice and snow, wild boars are forced to seek out more accessible alternatives. Following a sudden cold snap, 3 separate groups of wild boars appeared on a farmer's property within just 48 hours. At first, the farmer attempted to stop them with sturdy steel fencing. But the boars quickly discovered weaknesses in the structure. In just a single week, one herd was capable of breaking through multiple fences, traditional metal traps also began showing serious limitations. When biologists reviewed tracking data, they discovered a fascinating behavioral pattern. Within each herd, 1 or 2 individuals often act as scouts. These animals move ahead of the group, constantly sniffing and observing their surroundings. The moment they detect an unfamiliar scent or an unusual disturbance in the soil, they immediately retreat. The rest of the herd then changes direction and avoids the area entirely. This collective awareness is one of the main reasons traditional control methods continue to fail. Based on these observations, wildlife managers reached an important conclusion. Targeting individual animals was unlikely to solve the problem in the long run. To be effective, they needed to target entire herds at once. That realization led to the development of large circular trapping systems. Cameras are installed around the trap to monitor herd activity in real time. Operators watch remotely and wait until every animal has entered the enclosure before activating the gate. At the right moment, the drop gate is triggered remotely, slamming shut and locking almost instantly. While traditional hunting methods often achieve only about 10 to 20% effectiveness because many animals survive and continue reproducing. Large-scale trapping systems can be far more successful by capturing entire herds in a single operation. In areas where this behavior-based strategy has been implemented, wild boar populations have gradually begun to decline. More importantly, the results have proven to be long-lasting rather than temporary, creating a more sustainable approach to population control.
Door drop, boom, that's it.
Imagine stepping outside at night with nothing but a flashlight, believing you're protecting everything you worked for, only to suddenly realize you're no longer the predator. You're almost the prey. If you want to understand how one simple idea began changing a battle many people thought could never be won, stay until the end. And before we continue, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to discover could completely change the way you see nature and animal intelligence. In October 2023, a farmer in East Texas experienced one of the most shocking moments of his life. In just a single night, 70% of his corn crop was destroyed with only 3 weeks left before harvest. The corn stalks were completely crushed, forming strange trails that looked like roads carved straight through the field. Some ears of corn had been completely eaten, while others were scattered across the ground. The soil, torn apart by dozens of hooves, turned into deep mud. What had once been a healthy field ready for harvest now looked like a disaster zone after a major storm. The farmer estimated the damage at more than $40,000. And even worse, his insurance did not cover destruction caused by wild animals.
Dich der lästigen Keilerkonkurrenz erwehren.
Farmers eventually realized that truly reducing the wild hog population required more than simply chasing them away. It required removing them effectively. Everything started with bait, and not just any bait worked. They discovered that fermentation, known as sauerkraut, was incredibly effective. The fermentation process created a powerful smell that could be detected from long distances, and the mild alcohol content seemed to make the bait even more attractive to the animals. For days, sometimes even weeks, farmers placed the bait in the exact same location. The hogs found it, fed on it, returned repeatedly, and slowly began trusting the area. They developed a routine, started feeling safe, and that was when the next stage began. Little by little, farmers started building structures around the bait site. A large enclosure made from heavy metal panels was set up with an open entrance. The hogs walked in, ate, and left without encountering any danger. Meanwhile, the farmers observed everything, using cameras to identify each animal in a group, count their numbers, study their habits, and track the exact times they appeared, waiting until every member of the sound showed up. Unlike older automatic traps, the modern systems were remotely controlled. Cameras streamed live footage directly to the farmer's phone, allowing them to watch every movement in real time and wait until every single hog was inside before triggering the gate. With one command, the heavy door slammed shut, trapping the entire group. The shift from automatic traps to human-controlled systems with real-time monitoring dramatically improved effectiveness. When done correctly, this method could capture nearly 100% of sounder and, most importantly, avoid leaving behind survivors that would later learn how to avoid traps. Within only a few generations, a single bloodline can grow into hundreds of hogs. Because of this, experts believe at least 70% of the population must be removed every year just to stop the numbers from continuing to rise. To actually reduce the population, that number needs to exceed 80 to 90%, an extremely difficult goal, especially without large-scale cooperation. But the problem is even more complicated than that. Wild hogs possess biological traits that make them incredibly difficult to control. They're omnivores capable of eating almost anything. They adapt quickly to different environments, and their thick skin and powerful muscles make rapid removal difficult. Most importantly, their short reproductive cycle allows populations to recover extremely fast after losses. Humans themselves have also made the situation far worse. In many cases, the hogs did not naturally spread into certain areas. They were brought there by people. Some individuals, mostly hunters, illegally transported and released wild hogs to create new hunting opportunities. That single decision accelerated the expansion of the species far beyond its natural limits. The result was a fast-moving, chaotic invasion that many regions were completely unprepared for, lacking the experience, equipment, coordination, and strategies needed to respond effectively. But perhaps the most disturbing part of all was something else entirely, something farmers and hunters slowly began noticing over time.
If you caught only a quick glimpse of the dark patch at the far end of the field, you might think it was nothing more than a cluster of low trees swaying in the night wind. But the farmers of Texas knew the truth was far different. Hidden inside that darkness were massive feral hogs, creatures that had turned hundreds of acres of farmland into a battlefield in just a few hours. They appeared without warning, tore through cornfields, destroyed fences, then vanished before sunrise. For months, these animals had avoided every attempt to stop them. They moved like ghosts, leaving behind only tracks, mud, and growing destruction. For 6 straight months, multiple control teams tried every possible method. Cameras were installed across the area. Movement routes were carefully marked. Traps were placed at the most strategic locations. Yet the hogs always seemed to stay one step ahead of the humans. They changed their travel patterns, approached food sources from different directions, and quickly avoided any place that showed signs of danger. That was why, instead of rushing into action, the team chose to rely on their most important weapon this time: patience. For several days in a row, fermented corn was scattered around the trap sites. Its scent drifted through the night air, slowly drawing in small groups of hogs. The unusual part was that the trap gates always remained open. There were no engine noises, no falling doors, no signs that might trigger suspicion. Night after night, the hogs grew more confident. They began walking deeper inside, feeding comfortably before leaving as if the place were completely safe. On the decisive night, camera systems positioned in multiple locations simultaneously transmitted live footage back to the monitoring screens. At the first site, the smaller hogs had already moved completely inside the control zone. At another location, several massive boars were slowly approaching the bait. But the most important target still had not appeared. Inside the truck cabin, almost no one spoke. Every eye remained fixed on the glowing screens cutting through the darkness. No one wanted to ruin the operation with a reckless decision. Time passed with unbearable slowness. 1 hour. 2 hours. Then 3 in the morning. Finally, the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. The enormous lead boar crossed the final boundary and stepped deep into the enclosure. Across every monitor, the entire sounder was finally in position. At that instant, silence inside the cabin became absolute. Fingers rested on the controls, ready. Everyone understood there would only be one chance. The signal was triggered. In an instant, multiple trap gates slammed shut at the same time. The violent sound of metal crashing echoed through the night, shattering the silence of the Texas countryside. The hogs suddenly charged in every direction searching for an escape, but every exit had already been sealed. At multiple locations, the traps completed their task simultaneously. What had failed for months was finally accomplished in only a few seconds. But the operation was far from over. The moment the traps were activated, the control team immediately moved toward each site. Under the glare of headlights and flashlight beams, they had to inspect the entire system as quickly as possible. The sounds of thrashing animals echoed across the fields as the trapped hogs desperately searched for a way out. Every step forward demanded absolute concentration. In the thick darkness, there was no room for mistakes. Only when the first rays of sunlight appeared over the horizon did the true scale of the operation finally become clear. From up close, the massive feral hogs revealed exactly why they were capable of causing such enormous destruction. Their huge bodies, incredible strength, and remarkable adaptability had made them one of the greatest threats facing agricultural regions across Texas. Six control sites, countless hours of continuous surveillance, and a carefully prepared plan had finally produced the result they wanted. This was not a victory of brute force. It was a victory built on observation, calculation, and patience in the long struggle between humans and the unwanted invaders of Texas land.
Hogs from just utterly laying waste to the land. When they show up, buddy, it is bad news.
They're incredibly powerful, remarkably intelligent, and can charge through dense brush at speeds that rival a race car. These armored tanks of the forest fear neither thorny thickets nor predators armed with razor-sharp teeth. They are true masters of survival, turning what seems like an ordinary snout into a powerful tool and transforming their tusks into formidable weapons. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're taking a closer look at the wild boar, one of the boldest and most adaptable animals in the natural world. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get started. Wild boars are far more than just the wild ancestors of domestic pigs. They are true survival machines, weighing anywhere from 440 to 660 pounds and protected by coarse hair and a thick layer of fat that acts like natural armor. Their most fearsome weapons are their tusks, which constantly sharpen themselves through friction as they chew, creating natural blades that can be extremely dangerous. Found across a vast range stretching from the forests of Europe to the tropical jungles of Asia, wild boars are excellent swimmers, capable of traveling dozens of miles and eating almost anything they can find. Their diet includes roots, seeds, insects, small animals, and even carrion. It is this combination of strength, adaptability, and an omnivorous appetite that has made them one of the most formidable wild animals on Earth. Deep in the wilderness, few predators are more feared than wolves. Yet when a wolf pack decides to hunt a wild boar, the outcome is far from guaranteed. Wild boars typically live in family groups led by experienced females that work together to protect their young. Older males, on the other hand, often live alone and are opponents that many predators would rather avoid. Wolves try to wear their prey down through long pursuits, but wild boars possess astonishing endurance. When danger approaches, they can burst through dense thorny vegetation that is difficult for their pursuers to navigate. With their wedge-shaped heads and incredibly powerful neck muscles, wild boars slice through thick brush like living arrows, often leaving their predators far behind. But the most fascinating moment comes when a wild boar decides it no longer wants to run. Instead of surrendering, it suddenly turns and launches a counterattack. Imagine a 440-pound wall of muscle charging straight at you at nearly 25 miles per hour. A single slash from those razor-sharp tusks can inflict devastating injuries. Wolves understand this risk very well, which is why they often choose to back away and search for prey that presents a much lower chance of injury. As wild boar populations grow and habitats become more crowded, conflicts with humans become increasingly common. In a single night, a group of wild boars can turn carefully maintained farmland into a scene of destruction. Using their powerful snouts, they tear through fields of corn, potatoes, and many other crops. The problem goes beyond property damage. Wild boars can also carry dangerous diseases, including African swine fever. These diseases have the potential to cause severe losses in the livestock industry and threaten food security across entire regions. For this reason, wild boars are considered a serious biological threat in several parts of the world. The conflict between humans and wild boars has become so intense that traditional hunting methods are often no longer enough to keep their numbers under control. Wild boars reproduce rapidly, and in areas where populations become too dense, authorities are forced to adopt more aggressive management strategies. Across many parts of the United States and Australia, large-scale trapping systems have been introduced to manage entire sounders of wild boars across vast landscapes that are difficult to monitor using conventional methods. These modern traps combine surveillance cameras, bait stations, and remote-triggered gates to significantly improve efficiency while reducing the animal's suspicion. Nature has created a survival machine that is nearly perfect, and in response, humans continue to develop increasingly sophisticated strategies to match its resilience. That is the story of the wild boar, one of the toughest, strongest, and most adaptable animals in the wild.